Are you there? The great masters of the spiritual life all have their own progress in their own lives as they grow. Especially the mystics that we're familiar with in the literature of mystical life, and especially in the Christian sphere, it's often summarized in learning to live in the presence of God. Learning to live in the presence of God. And that's completely in line with the revelation God has given us that we receive through the biblical sources and in the development of the great masters of the Christian life, of the spiritual life. I'm not so familiar with those great masters, well, the great masters of the Jewish spiritual life, but obviously the prophets. The prophets, and obviously since then, also in the last 2,000 years, there must have been some marvelous masters. In the Christian life, one of the biggest, let's say, conclusions or practical things is to live in the presence of God. And one of the biggest truths about the presence of God is that He is always with us, Emmanuel. God is Emmanuel. He is with us. And He is with us as God, because He is God. He doesn't have any other way to be with us. We could be with people in a room and not be aware of their presence. We mightn't even just recognize them for a new crowd of people. Or we have, for different reasons, we're a little flustered over certain things. We can be oblivious to certain people who are around us. And we go, oh, it's you. Oh, you're here too. And we wake up to this. So we can check out, but God never checks out. He's always with us. Even when, like in the readings today, the first reading is very tough. It's very tough speaking about the hardness of heart, the stiff-necked people who don't want to be aware, who don't want to listen, who don't want to hear His voice. It's a very, very strong critique. And obviously, like it says, we don't like correction because we have such a sense of our own freedom. And the first one to respect our freedom is the Almighty Himself. He's the one to respect it. He's the one who made us. He made us in His image and likeness. And we actually have the possibility to shut Him out, to resist His teaching, to resist His correction, to resist his will. And in fact, the maturity of the spiritual life is then to say, thy will be done. You are here, you are present in my life, and I want my life to be completely united to yours. And so we see the passion today in this reading, in the first reading of God, like for a parent, the passion for a little to have the little child grow in the best in their lives. Let's just take a look at that for a second. They obeyed not, nor did they pay heed. They walked in the hardness of their evil hearts and turned their backs, not their faces to me. That's a very powerful image, to turn their backs, not their faces to me. They turned their backs, not their faces to me. And if God created us only out of love, and God is love, all he wants from me is goodness. I'm taking you inside today for a very good reason. I won't tell you yet. Maybe you can guess. If you have read the readings already, you can guess. So just hold your horses here a second until I get in. Some of you are familiar with this place already, the sacristy. Oh, I think I don't need to turn on the lights. Actually, that's very special with these lights of the sun today. In fact, we'll do this. This wasn't. Oh, I do need to have some light. I need to turn on some lights. So, can you help me here, please? We'll turn on this light for the dome, and we'll just turn on these lights here. Although with the amount of sunlight outside as well, the light should come into the chapels. A certain amount at least. Let's just enjoy this light for a second here. The way it's so abundantly pouring in. There's so many expressions of the presence of God. They had the tent of the presence, the bread of the presence. All expressions in the biblical culture. That was one of the great senses of the 12 pieces of showbread in the temple, the bread of the presence. That we're in the presence of God, that we are living in his presence. Not to turn our backs. It's very interesting to see the practice of the Jewish people at the Temple Mount area at the Western Wall, and the pious ones walk out. They walk out backwards so that they're not turning their back to the presence. Now we can see the light streaming in here. And we're made for more than the company of material locations and beautiful landscapes, which are a delight and a joy. We're made to live in the presence of God and the presence of the angels. And then the scriptures, little by little, give us greater and growing clarity. More light is shed on the evil spirit. And today in the gospel we have the deliverance from evil spirits as the background to a very really awful accusation against Jesus, that he is expelling demons by the power of demons. This is actually the first one ever done of the scene of the expulsion of the demons from Mary Magdalene, the first work of art. That's what we are told by experts who study these things. And there's a big debate, Jesus gets very strong on this issue when he's accused of throwing out the devil by the power of Satan. In another parallel text, it says, if you see the demons fleeing before the finger of God, know that the kingdom of God is with you. From Adam and Eve, and that very story of the turning their backs to God's command, turning away from him. This is captured also in the way the artist rendered for the first time ever this scene, the association with the serpent in this image from Genesis chapter 3. It's intriguing for us, this whole field, and for our world today. Yesterday I read a note that from surveys that 44% of people in the great city of Seattle don't profess any faith, and 44% are Christian. It's apparently the first time that this proportion has emerged in the studies. And when we're not filled with the truth of revelation, then we are prey to many different thoughts and ideas about reality. One of the great things about revelation is that God is with us. And God is more powerful than any force of evil. But we are free. And we can turn our backs on God. And nature abhors a vacuum because we're made for higher. We're made for owning more than a mountain. We're aimed for owning more than a building, for owning a car, for owning clothes, for owning anything material where we put our treasure on, our heart is in it, we love it, we want it, we find our definition there. We're made for more than that, much more. We're made for eternal glory in the company of the angels and saints in the divine presence forever. This is our destiny. And a few thoughts crossed my mind this morning about what are the surest signs that we are truly living in the presence of God. And one has to be, for sure, since God is love, that hatred is not the dominating feature of some of our relationships with other people. It's clear from the scriptures that Satan hates the work of God. He wants to destroy it. To have hatred, to want to control other people. When God gives us freedom, his plan is to give us freedom, to let us blossom. A little olive tree blossom. To let us thrive. He creates us for life. Were we to have such hatred that we would kill somebody, we cannot let hatred invade our heart, our mind, our soul, even to the people who do the worst injury to us. Because God is love, we want to recover them. To live in God's presence, to want to do his will, and his will is love. His will is being a blessing for others. That's a great word of the scriptures, a blessing. And even when somebody dies in this culture here, in the Jewish culture, it's may his memory be a blessing. May it be for blessing. And then just a general marker of being in the presence of God is, first of all, the Ten Commandments, just doing the good, avoiding the evil. And then if we really want to go into the presence of God when the pressure gets tough, it's the Beatitudes. It's the ability and the willingness to suffer injustice for the sake of the kingdom, to suffer injustice, to still stay with that child who's rebelling, whose hateful language, whose rejection and harshness seems to increase, and still staying there with love, with patience, fulfilling that great vocation of parenthood, of parenting. Evil will not definitively triumph because God is more powerful than evil. There's no question about that. So to live in God's presence is faith, is hope, is love. This is God's presence. It's humility, pride, stiff-necked, rebellion, rejection is not a sign of God's presence. And we can be easily fooled and cheated, and we can let ourselves be cheated. So let's ask for the grace to grow in humility before God. Not to turn our backs, to let His word reach into the depths of our soul, our conscience, our will, our heart. Let us desire it, even if we're trapped a little bit in some bad habits, in a lack of spirit of worship of God, a lack of spirit of service, a lack of spirit of kindness. Let us ask for the grace to be transformed. And God is present. He's Emmanuel. He is always with us. He will always give us strength. No evil can overcome us. No personal evil can overcome us. No evil circumstances can overcome us. It's the incredible greatness of the human being in the presence of God, with the strength of God, overcoming all things, all problems, health, financial, family, relationships, political problems in the church, all these things that where evil has its footprint, we can be sure that God is for us, with us. He is with us, always present to us. We just have to learn to be present to Him. People, God bless you. See you later, alligators.